Thank you for joining me today on Culture Keys. Get set, get ready, let's grow.
And here we go. Welcome into Culture Keys this morning. And I want to say thank you for joining me. And once again, I'm coming to you from the kitchen table. And this has been kind of a neat season for Culture Keys because I haven't been able to be in the studio as I've stayed pretty close to home while Steph recovers from her back surgery. And usually we tape in blocks and we get, 4 to 6, even a few more than that at times. And I teach those in series fashion because I believe that we learn best when we stack precept on precept until we gain an understanding that turns into faith in action. But we've kind of done these last few weeks, week to week. So I've been able to really stay in the flow of what God is doing in our ministry right now. And this morning is one of those hot off the press and right in the flow of the move of God that's taking place at the Kingdom Center presently. And I want to encourage you, if you're a person connected to the Kingdom Center, you need to tell somebody about the extraordinary move of God that's taking place. But I want to talk today to missional disciples about purpose. I want to talk to those who are truly consumed with following Christ. And I want to say this, I believe the only way to fully follow Christ is to be completely consumed. And I want to come from a verse in Matthew chapter 4. And Jesus, it's very familiar because he's in recruitment mode. And I believe this is the mode God has his remnant end times church in a mode to reap the harvest, in a mode to recruit. And his earthly ministry is just beginning to take shape. And his very first order of business is to call men to follow him. And in Matthew chapter 4, he says to them the very familiar words, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." And this week I thought of this, and maybe I don't know that I've ever had this thought before. And it almost brings tears to my eyes. And I'll tell you, I'm emotional because I've just had the most wonderful day with Christ yesterday. And this hit me so hard as I'm reading Matthew chapter 4, maybe for the 1,000th time, and I hear the words of Christ, "Follow me and I will make you fishers of men." And the Spirit's voice in me spoke so loudly and said this to me: of all the things you ask God to make you, how often do you ask him to make you a fisher of men? Because that was what he promised to do. And yet we ask God to make us blessed and favored and healthy, but how many of us are truly praying the white hot prayer of God, make me an end time harvester, make me a fisher of men? And Jesus was about to transform each of these men from someone, watch this, who worked only for himself and a daily catch, into someone who was part of a larger team thinking about eternity. And truly, when we come to Christ and we enter the body of Christ and we are grounded and planted in a local church, what God does is so desperately try to get us from just thinking about ourselves to being a part of a team thinking about eternity. And if you have something to write with, I want you to write this down because I just believe this is a really big idea. And here it is: getting people to think beyond themselves is always Christ's objective. Getting people to think beyond themselves is always Christ's objective. Listen to what he says in John 4:35. He says, "Don't say there are 4 months, then comes harvest, because I say to you, lift up your eyes and do what? Look on the fields. Look beyond yourself, for the fields are already white to harvest." And if we can learn, let me reach to you today. If we can learn to look beyond ourselves, our lives, our issues, we can learn to see through the eyes of God. Because where we look will always decide what we see, and what we see will always determine what we do, and what we do will ultimately determine the value of our life. So I ask you today, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are we going to do? Jesus, here in Matthew 4, was putting together his team, and he understood the power of teamwork, and he knew the strategies necessary to put a team together. And I believe this is what God's called us to do at the Kingdom Center, to put together a team of people that know what it is to truly be involved in kingdom work, who are moving in the same direction, focused on the same goals, having the same common values and common purpose, and coming together in unity to make his dream and his mission a reality. But I want us to look closely at what Christ did and how he did it, in hopes that we can follow in those footsteps, because I believe it's important for us to understand how he took the average and the ordinary man and turned him into a force that would shape and change the world. And I want to tell you, that body of people God has called together at the Kingdom Center, we are that sort of people with the same call to follow Christ and to change the world. And you and I must be challenged, and we must be changed. That's why the words that are coming forth right now are all words that challenge faith in action. Because until we're challenged and changed, we'll never have the power to challenge and change others. So let's look at, what did he do? How did Jesus do it? And the first thing he did, and I think this is such a cool point to bring out, Jesus had a way of exciting people. He had the incredible ability to excite the heart, causing people to take their lives and minds and hearts and families in completely new directions. Jesus brought a fire into people's lives who were once living nondescript, non-effective, non-progressive lives. They were merely existing just like so many of us. Coming to church, we're faithful, but we're treading water. And you can see this dynamic. Listen to this verse in Matthew 4:16. Absolute dramatic impact. Watch this. The people which sat in darkness saw a great light, and to them which sat in the region of the shadow of death, light has sprung up. I'm talking about immediate and sudden releases of power and ability, because Christ's ability to excite was this dramatic. People went from dark to light in an instant, and he was the switch, and he is always the switch, and it never takes him long to move us from death to life, from inactive to productive. And these men that Jesus called, they were minding their business. They were so excited by the words and the invitation of Christ, they left everything without question. Matthew 4:20 says, they straightway left their nets and followed him. There was no mention of blessings. There was no list of benefits, but these men were willing to leave their lives in pursuit of the way, the truth, and the life. I want to ask you something today, and I want you to sit with this. Don't reject it. What have you been willing or inclined to leave so you could follow? Because the reality of most of our American church disciples is this: we've asked Christ to follow us, to bless what we've decided to do, and to look the other way while we casually worship the gods of the age. But listen to me today. Hear the heart of your pastor. There is no following without a leaving. You got to leave something to chase God. And so often in the American church, we want God, but we want our lives too. But salvation is an exchange. At the very base level, salvation is an exchange of lives. You give yours to him, and he gives his to you. I want to ask you, what have you left? Have you left your sin? The practice of sin in your life? Have you left your pride and arrogance and self-reliance? Have you said goodbye to your addictions? Let me ask you the harder questions. Have you said goodbye to your lusts? Because I want to caution you this morning, if you didn't leave your nets, you're not following. And I just believe the American church needs a wake-up call. We've got to have the prophetic sound the alarm, blow the trumpets in Zion, and bring the people of God to a place of levity, a place of understanding and revelation that the way we're going about our spiritual faith walk with Christ is not sustainable. It's not sustainable for the church. We've got to be so inspired. When was the last time that you were so inspired that you decided to leave something? What have we left? These men left their plans to pursue his. In Acts 26, Paul is standing before great King Agrippa, and he's giving an account, a testimony of his experience with God. Paul was on his way to persecute the church, and what happened? God stopped him. The impact was dramatic, from death to life, from dark to light, and he was so excited that Paul altered his life immediately to follow Christ. Paul was otherwise employed. He was chasing his own plan. And just like all of us before we found Christ, he was an enemy of God. But listen to the change in his testimony. Listen to Acts 26:22. Here's what he says. Therefore, having obtained help from God, to this day I stand, witnessing both to small and great, saying no other things than those which the prophets and Moses said would come. Let me ask you again, when's the last time you got excited about your life in Christ? How long has it been since you woke up with a burning passion to partner with God in his redemptive mission? I'm not asking you, do you go to church? Are you faithful? Do you give? Do you serve? We have a church life. We've mastered church life. Let me ask it another way. Is your faith bored because it's never been put to its intended use? Powerful question. Psalms 51:12. Listen to David's cry. Restore unto me the excitement, the joy of my salvation. Grant me a willing spirit that I might be sustained. I want to encourage you today as you consider your walk with Christ. I want to encourage you today as you honestly stand before the King. What's the value of your faith experience? Where is it bearing fruit? Have you left to pursue? Because when we leave everything to follow Christ, it's a crazy thing, but we gain it all. And today I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you to put yourself before the Lord and ask him, Lord, what if you're calling me to leave so that I can follow, that you might make me an instrument for the harvest. I want to pray for you today. Father, I thank you. I just feel the inspiration of your Spirit today as Matt and I sit at the kitchen table in my own home. And I believe that today the church is moving into the homes of disciples. We've thought of the church as a place we go, where we attend, where we belong, where we serve. But we are the church, and today you are waking disciples up, and you are restoring the excitement, the joy of our salvation, and granting us a willing spirit, making us an instrument for the harvest. Touch these. Sometimes we are so overcome with life and so overthrown with the weeds that we're planted in the midst of, that it sucks out the vitality and the ability to bear fruit and reap the harvest. Restore unto us our vitality. Restore unto us our joy. Excite us to the place we're willing to leave it all in pursuit of you. And for these things, we'll give you praise. Oh, wow. I hope you feel it like I feel it today. I sure do love your Culture Keys. I can't wait to see you right back here next week.